Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In Nier Reincarnation, we got the last of the secret stories, or hidden stories as they are called in Global. And I thought this would be good timing to go over the different types of stories, and maybe a guide on which ones would be worth unlocking. And this is going to be a channel first, but this is not the final form of this video. This is a work in progress, a beta release. And I want folks in the comments to tell me how you like this idea, how you like the format, and how you like the individual rankings, if I'm underrating or overrating certain things. Also, we don't have the Recollections of Dusk stories for Argo and F66X yet, so I'll have to wait for those to make the final anyway. And I was going to go into why I'm doing this, but I'll save that for the final draft video. I'll just say that this video is aimed at folks new to the game, but could be helpful to long-term players as well, if they're not caught up on unlocking everything. Alright, first let's explain how this chart is set up, and then we'll talk about the actual stories. I'll try to stay away from spoilers as much as possible. But we have half the girl monster characters here at the along the top, and then on the left we have different types of stories. Main story, Dark Memory, Secret or Hidden stories, and then finally Recollections of Dusk stories. And in parentheses, I put kind of like what is the defining character of these different types of stories. The main story, of course, we all got to play them, we all got to see them. They serve as a good introduction to the characters. The Dark Memory stories, which we unlock by taking their Dark Memory weapons to stage 11 using the Lavender Cubes. These are often supplemental. They might be history, like previous happenings, or they might be future happenings, or even alternate timelines. And then below that we have the secret or hidden stories. These are the ones that you pick up from the map if you go into the chapter for the character. And then these often serve as lead-ins to the Recollections of Dusk. And then at the bottom we have Recollections of Dusk, which often serve as the conclusion for the character arcs. And this became very clear when we started getting People World. Within the main story of People World, the Sun Moon characters were getting kind of their resolutions to their stories, to the relationships, to their kind of pair characters, while most of the girl monster characters were just kind of spinning their wheels in the main story. But as we got more Recollections of Dusk stories, we saw more and more that they held the true conclusion to these character arcs. And then that's also part of the reason why I'm not including Sun Moon characters in these charts. Okay, and then we can look at the legend on the right, how to read this chart. And then all of the squares underneath the characters, they have different colors. Depending on the color, that's how important I feel it is to unlock and then read those stories. Pink means must read, and also it might have information on the lore of the world or the universe or other games. I can recommend that everybody look at these. Yellow is important information, but only for the character itself, not so much the world. Green is non-essential flavor. These are for fans of the characters, maybe in particular. And then blue is not worth the effort. Not a lot of these. I'll just say that 063Y's Dark Memory story, it's him testing out some armor, and that's about it. There's no implications on anything, basically. If this were like a hidden story, secret story, that would be okay. But using the Lavender Cubes in order to unlock the Dark Memory for kind of just a story about testing armor doesn't feel like it's worth the effort. And then some squares have NA, not applicable. This is for F66X and Argo, who do not have the Recollections of Dusk yet. And then in the squares, I put order in which might be best to read the stories, 1, 2, 3, 4, or X, where it doesn't matter what order you read them in. And then the Dark Memory and the Recollections of Dusk stories, they also have stories to go with the costumes and the weapons that you unlock, and then these ratings will take that into account as well. And then finally, not listed are character stories or event stories. I consider them all green, so non-essential. Alright, but let's look character by character. Everybody has one, of course, for the main story, purple, because we're all going to read them. And then Leon, unfortunately, all the rest of his stories I feel like are non-essential. I love Leon, one of my favorite characters, but unfortunately outside of the main story, not super necessary, I would say. But we have his para-character, Demas, there. His Dark Memory story also has a little bit of a history, and then the prince shows up as well. But his secret stories might be very important to the kind of the overall lore of the universe. We might meet the creator of the Gestalt project. Maybe we'll get hints about that later. And then Recollections of Dusk. It shows kind of the ultimate fate of both Demas and Leon, and has one of the best reputations for stories in the game. So that gets a yellow. But yeah, any of the characters that are in pairs, if you like one, it is worth unlocking the others so that you can get context for both of them together. Alright, and then we have Gale. I think she is unique in that her order is a little bit different. Her Dark Memory, also some background that's maybe non-essential. And then I would say to read the Recollections of Dusk stories next. For most characters, this is the conclusion, but I think the true conclusion lies in her secret stories, so I would read those later. Oh, I totally forgot about unlocking secret stories. You do go onto the map of the chapter, of the character that you want to unlock. It is possible to just to go through one chapter and then unlock just one character. When I was playing my global version, I was unlocking all of the secret stories as they're coming out, so that it was like random every week who's going to get it. But in my JP account, like for example, I just went through and I unlocked all of Noelle's secret stories, because I just went through her stage, kept picking up secret stories. So it is possible to concentrate on one character there. Okay, next is Akeha. She has maybe the most well-written story overall, and I highly recommend to read them in order: Main Story, Dark Memory, Secret Story, and Recollections of Dusk. Okay, and then we have 063Y. He has the Dark Memory story that is maybe not worth the effort. But his secret stories maybe has very important lore for the universe. But I gave it an X because it doesn't really matter what order you read it in. And then we have the Recollections of Dusk story. This is a great story talking about both 063Y and F66X, talking about both of their conclusions, so I really like that one. Alright, and then we have F66X. Her Recollections of Dusk are not out yet, so it's hard to make a real judgment about what order to read the stories in, so I left the two blank. But her Dark Memory story could also have very important implications for the universe of Nier. But the secret story is not as essential. Okay, then let's look at the latter half of the dozen Girl Monster stories. We got Argo here. He is also missing his Recollections of Dusk. I have high expectations for that. His secret stories are very important to understanding not only his motivations, but his family's motivations. And then the Dark Memory story, I really, really like it. It's a future story about his family, but non-essential, perhaps. Okay, next we have Lars and Griff. I can talk about them together. But I put their secret stories kind of merged into one, because they really do play off of each other. So yeah, here too, if you like one of them, I would say unlock all the stories for each of them. And all of them are fairly essential, I would say. Alright, next we have Noelle, and her stories could be very impactful from a universe point of view. So she has a lot of the pink squares. But Dark Memory, it's a little bit of past history, which is not super necessary. Okay, and then we have Lavanya. He has a question mark. He's the only one with that. There seems to be stuff that is like lore important in his secret stories, but I don't know how important they are. But it's maybe in between pink and yellow. And then his Dark Memory and then his Recollections of Dusk, they don't actually add anything to the character, but they're interesting sort of like anecdotes on the side. But knowing Fio's story, it makes more sense why like Lavanya's story is kind of disjointed. But for Fio, I think the secret stories are super important to understanding her character, and possibly has very impactful implications for the Nier universe. And then I seem to remember for Fio, if you're going through unlocking all of her stories, one of her stories appears in like a non-battle chapter, like the interval or the prologue. So if you're looking for the next Fio story and you can't find it on her map, maybe look in the non-battle stages. But her too, her dark memory and her recollections of dusk stories, also kind of disjointed, kind of anecdotal stories for her, similar to Lavanya. Oh, and I forgot to say one last thing. On the names of the characters, there are colors to them. If you want to go into the recollections of dusk stories, these are the element teams that we need to bring in order to play their battles. So Fio, she is wind element. If I wanted to go through her stuff and then unlock her, I would need fire characters and weapons. So if you did have your eye on a certain character, their recollections of Dusk story, then it would be a good idea to work on that element before going in there. Okay, let me know what you think about all this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.